Oh, this is a talk on relations and the social identity that we carry with us. And so, first, to define very quickly what is identity, it is who you are or the picture of who you are in yourself, while the social identity is how the others perceive you and perceive that pictures of you. So maybe sometimes you look much like your social identity and you identify totally with it. And other times you feel that the way you identify yourself and look at yourself is not how the others are perceiving you and understanding you or maybe relating to you. And so in your identity, you can show a kind of personality trait, and that is your way of being and behaving in certain situations. This makes your character, as they say. So the identity is the mirror, the personality is what it shows and how powerful or weak you stand forward and how you behave in different situations. And the social identity is how you are reflected in the mind of others and in those around you and the society around you. And we must all know that this is an interaction that is ongoing. It's an exchange that doesn't just stand still and is never like defined forever, but it is an interaction that is what they call dialectic. That means it's always something you give out to the environment and the environment gives back to you. It's a kind of relation you've got where you live in your identity in the social arena, and that social arena also forms and affects your identity, so you can change according to what's around you, or you can make the surroundings adapt to who you are and how you are. And this is the exciting thing about this identity and social identity that we have. And when we get socialized, like when we get our social identity, who we are in the eyes of other, how they want us to be, we have two main entrances or two main what can you say, influences on that. The first one is the family, the second one is the school, and the third is society. And so you have the family or those closest to you. Family can be many: mom, dad, mom's boyfriend, girlfriend, new wife, all the mom, all those people you relate to as family. They are the primary source of your behavior and how you relate to yourself in a social manner. So they help you adjust, and maybe they force you to adjust or change or look back at yourself and how you're doing or how the others are reading you. So you can be maybe of a kind of person, you have a personality that's very much outgoing and you speak a lot, or you can be very silent and never show your mind. And those around you in the family and the very close arena can have that kind of importance for you, that you have a trust. And so at one time or another, they would maybe reach to you and tell you, listen, you have a beautiful outgoing personality, but have you noticed that you really talk a lot? And you always fill the space for so others do not get to say anything, and that can in the long run be annoying for somebody else. And so you start adjusting that. You take that reflection with you, and next time you start like looking, oh yeah, that's true. Sorry, I got something in my throat, as one can also hear from my voice. But these people who are listening to you talking all the time, they will maybe be annoyed or tired or avoid you. And so you change accordingly so you fit in that social identity you also need or want to have. Other side of it is if you are maybe an introvert and very much keeping your words and sounds to yourself. Nobody hears you, nobody sees you. Everything you do is an internal process. You think inside your head and not with your mouth and movements. And so maybe people can be have hard time reading who you are, understanding what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and you just get passed by. And then you understand maybe sometimes very late why that has been happening. And so the primary people around you can be helpful, showing you. It can also be significant others, as I will talk about when I come to the school and the education places. So they can help you understand who you are and why you are such an introvert. Not why, but maybe how it affects others, and that you have to learn sometimes to speak your mind or be more open minded on who you are, so somebody can understand that there is something here you don't like or don't want or has made your mind up for. The second source of our social identity is the school, or what we call education places. And that can be the street as well as the so called institution called school. And I'm not saying schools are always a positive way of social identification. Sometimes they can ruin us or ruin our possibilities and the place we have to develop and be creative. I know a lot of people who have been damaged by the schools more than gotten out as a whole persons, and that's thing schools has to look back at. But that's not the issue here. The school is the place where you get affected. You learn really how to adapt to society norms and rules, and there are these agents called social workers or pedagogues or teachers who are there all the time and always trying to take measures on who you are, how you behave, and help you correct it. Many times it's for your good because then you will be adjusted to be in that society you're going to live in, so people can accept you, relate to you, you can adapt, you can find work and all that what you need to get on. Other times it's a nightmare, as we all know. It's a kind of breaking your personality, taking away your creativity, shutting everything down in you that makes you unique and special. And that's how the schools can also become a place for negative social identity effect. The third one is society as a whole. So, by being out there in the sports club or on the streets, wherever you go in your spare time, even if you're just in your room, this is part of society. You go look at something, watch a movie, or get educated by something, or just go online. Whatever you're doing, society is a place where you also get affected, and that changes your identity. So you start looking at how that person is behaving, and maybe you will imitate that behavior, or you see a group of people really doing some things you like to do, and you start doing it, and you start identifying with that group as well, or that person, whatever it is. And so you become part of what is called socialization process. You will be changed, and you will be adapted, and you will be given a social identity for from that society around you. And given, it does not mean that somebody will come and put a label on your head and say you are this, you are that, but it's an interaction. As I said before, it's always you interacting. You can refuse, you can rebel, you can go against, you can also find the new sources of interaction. It's, I know people who have been to school but really shut it out, and they got some good friends, a grandma, a neighbor, somebody they like, and they affected them much more. This is called significant others in your life, and these people can have a very significant impact on who you become and how your social identity develops. And that's why you are many times the product, or maybe that interaction of that relation with these people. It's not because they want to make you a product, it's because they're trying to see how you are and reflect that to you, and so you adjust or you reject that adjustment. And that's what makes you who you are and forms your social identity. It's the contact with these instances in the outside world, and you go on all life developing that personality of yours. As we said, personality is how you behave and show character in different situations, and and your identity can shift and change, and you will find that very obvious in the times we're living in. Maybe if we go back to our grandfathers and mothers generations, we couldn't really see that development a lot because they lived in what they call static societies. Some of them only had special and very limited contact with social identities, and so they were formed by that. You are a hunter, you're a farmer, yeah, you are a worker, you are a professor, you're a teacher, you're a priest, you are a salesman, and that follows them all life. And interaction will only be mostly with that group. So you see most sailors, they look alike. You will identify them immediately. And you see business people in the bank look alike. You will identify them also with a quick eye look, and so on with the workers and with the hunters and with the farmers and with those nerds who works online with ID. What can you say? ID hacking, or what do you hackers? Every group becomes alike because your intense social interaction with that group gives you the most traits you are adapting. So when you go out sailing, in first, well, you could look like any boy or any girl, and then later when you come back, you've totally changed. 2 years later, your identity has shifted to become something more like these sailors, and that's what we think is the special traits of sailors. So in our time, we can shift identities much more, and that has also been an issue that is important to look into. That maybe people shift identity too quickly today. They take on one mask, then another, then a third, then a fourth, and they change these masks all the time, even when they are online. And so your personality can be different from one space to another. You can be a very introvert, quiet girl or boy when you are in school or with your parents, and then when you go online, if somebody hears you, they will think, is that her? Is that really him? What? How is he talking? How is he behaving? And so the same goes if you are traveling and maybe change your identity or go online and change your identity. And so you always have the possibility of interaction with the society around you. Most of the time, you internalize. That's what it's called. You take things in from outside and adapt, adjust so you can go on. It's a compromise you make because you think, well, if I don't adapt to what's around me and people always looks at me as a stranger and a queer, a strange person, well, uh, I will have hard time living here and going on with my life. And so the pressure keeps mounting, and everyone will start telling you often and often, you have to drop this habit of doing this and that. When you go this place, this doesn't go. They will throw you out in the end, or they would not accept you and they will leave you out, and so on and so on. And so you choose to adjust and adapt and change that so called habit of yours or the way you do things because it does not fit in society and the social sphere. So there is an internalization process. You are under pressure for that adjustment. From inside you, you have the other side of you that doesn't want that pressure to be to become fully you. So you do not want to internalize things totally. You want also to be what you call yourself or take in what you like from other sources. That's why when people have traveled and come back to their society or home, they have changed because they had the opportunity to take things in from another cultures, another places, another people, and that had formed their identity. So when they come back, maybe they are slightly different in their clothing, talking, walking, speaking, eating, running, all that, and that will be visible for the people who knows them. And if things are very visible, society will notice as a whole. So if you come into a rural area society where they're walking in different special clothes, and you come in with your very different style of walking and clothing, well, they will notice you immediately and they will think, was that him that traveled 20 years ago? Is that really her? I can't recognize her. Who is she? Who has she become? Oh, poor girl, or wow, how wonderful, whatever they think. So that is the change you undergo all the time. And with the social media out there and the impact we can get from opening our phones and YouTube and all these channels that we have available, we can very quickly shift identity or maybe get affected and influenced by a certain way of life that we didn't have access to before. So your grandma that were living in that rural area waited for you 20 years to go out and change, you come back. Now she has only to wait maybe for 20 minutes, 20 hours or whatever, very short time. You go out there, you get influenced by something, you get a new haircut, or you change your way of speaking and you go back and you are changed in a way. You don't need to do that in front of your grandma, but if you do it, well, she will see that change very, very quickly. And the same will you. You will notice that you are not the same person. So we have this called double socialization of you. So they influence you as you go about. You are socialized, but there is also a double socialization because your surroundings out there, the influencers, the culture that's in, the culture that's really hot and people want to be like and imitate, that influences also your lifestyle. It influences your home and family and school and institution. So they are not free to keep going on with the old ways. You can see the schools how in certain manners they have changed, how the clothing and walking and talking and the kids are behaving. You can see it in the spare time, how you and others can be adjusting or changing. And that's all because of what we call double socialization. The whole idea of socialization is to make you adapting to culture, as we said. But double socialization is trying to adapt those places that adapt you. So it's like influencing your family, influencing your circle of friends, influencing the school, the places you go, the streets. And when they get influenced by the big society and the people who are like showing the way and telling you how to be cool or not, and what is cool, what is not, the people with basically power to influence, and people like their influence, well, they will change a lot of things around you that will definitely, in the end, have an impact on you. Now, you can resist and you can be a rebel and you can go live in a cave or choose an alternative way of life in a group that does not like the way things are going and maybe want it to go in a different way. And this is what you can also see happening around you. Some people, they just go to some kind of crazy way of really opposing everything that's around them in society. They start clothing themselves in a special way, and they go only to certain places and they behave only in a certain manner. And that's how to say, I have an identity that's different from all what you people want me to be in society. I don't care. I'm going my own way. And that can be both outgoing and ingoing. That means it can be a group you go to that really want to show themselves out in society, and others who want to hide, who just want to say, well, we don't think we fit in here. And so because we do not fit, we have this alternative way of being with ourselves and around society. And that's what you're going to see with identity and that kind of socialization and double socialization. So it's all back to the question, who is influencing who? And we can see that sometimes you can get the influence from the double side, from both family and society, or maybe family school, or maybe just family against school, family against society. It's not always they're working together. You can maybe have a family that is in a certain way, have certain values, and then society goes in a different direction, and the school starts wanting you to adjust to that direction. And this is the law, and this is the policy, and this is how we do things here. That's what they will tell you. But at home, they do things very differently. And so that double socialization can become opposite each other. It's not always the bigger society that influence the smaller ones, and then it goes onto you. It is also sometimes that they go against each other, opposing each other, and that's where you get the conflict in identity, because something inside you wants to go in a certain way, something outside you is pushing you in another. And maybe these two sides outside you are pushing you in two different directions, and you want to go in a totally third direction. But you can't, because you're living in society, you're dependent on it, on the money, on the housing, on the place to be. So you have to really root yourself up and go all the way to where you find yourself more valued and accepted and part of the way you want to be. But not everyone gets that chance or get to think like that, because we mostly want to fit in, and we want to reflect how our parents and school and society is showing us we should be. And when they conflict, we also get in conflict. So we know it from families and people who have like a certain way of life, beliefs, religions, traditions, or maybe it can be non-beliefs, non-traditions, and they live in societies that's the opposite. And the schools maybe are focusing on one certain area or two of life, or having some ideas they want to put through. And you can see, well, that won't go with my parents at home. Me being part of that is not really gonna go at home. So what do I do? Should I stay out? Should I come? Should I minimize the contact? Whatever. You find some strategies to get on between them. And this is what's called the social arenas, as Anthony Giddens, the sociologist, has been explaining in his books. You go into different social arenas, and with you have different norms, cultures, and way of doing things. And this is how the modern life has mostly become, different social arenas. So it's not all connected and it's not all the same, unless you're living in a society that still has this so-called monoculture. That means one culture, one way, and one behavior, and you will find it at home, in school, in society, almost alike. Most other places that doesn't have that, that can be very relaxing, by the way, having it that way, because everything is coherent. And if someone is breaking out of that, if you have a different identity, well, you will be a small minority, and maybe you will just go away or travel or move or get suppressed or whatever. But most others would find it more enjoyable that everything is recognized both at home, in school, and society. And so their identity will be accordingly to that, and people will start looking like each other more and more. But the social arenas appear also in these cultures, but they appear more in the cultures where you are free to contradict the society ways of being. And so if you are part of a community that has some certain way of dress code or belief or thinking, way of doing things, what they like, what they don't like, what you should do, should not do, you can be like that when you are with them. And then when you go to the school that is totally different and does not follow the values of that family and group you are a part of, you can shift your way of being. And that's what we also see in many kids. They shift in their behavior when they are in these social arenas according to how the society around them is expecting them to be. And sometimes they get in conflict as well because they do not want to overstep their limits. And sometimes they know, well, it's two different separate worlds. I can be here like these people are, and over there I can shift back or be a part of how they want me to be, or how I also want to be. Depends on how you look at it and how you feel about it. But these social arenas you move in, they can also be non-problematic. They can also just be different arenas. It's like, let's go back to that society that had mostly the same rules everywhere. There is still social arenas there, because when you are at home, this is a social arena you are in when you are eating breakfast with your family. That can be very, very different from when you're going to the mall or going to listen to a lecture or watch a play, or be in a dance club. So you can behave differently in different social arenas, and each of them has its norms and culture. And you have to find your way. This is called discourse, to find your way in that special arena that you are part of in that special community. So social arenas, they are a kind of communities, places where you meet people. They have rules and norms and codes for your behavior, and you have to like adapt. And that's called the discourse. You look how is it here most suitable to be. And sometimes you go totally wrong, and that's what we find sometimes funny, or people give attention to something that happens that shouldn't be happening. So when you are basically attending a dance school, you are not expecting someone to ask everyone to be quiet and sit still. You're expecting something else. And the opposite, if you're sitting attending a lecture or a funeral, or people who are having a serious conversation, you're not expected to come and dance and play loud music and just go in and disturb everyone with some things that's out of what people see fit to have with you in that special arena. That goes also for the clothing and looking. How would you attend a place where people just has had lost someone dear to them? Would you do that in the same way than when you are going to be together with people who's gonna get married? How will you behave in these different situations? How would you behave if you are if the society is in crisis? There is fire, an attack, a virus. Or how would you behave if everything is nice and cozy and people are going out in the gardens and working and running and sitting and so on? So it's different codes for different arenas. I guess it's very obvious. Yeah, that was a little about that. The socialization, double socialization, how you develop your personality as a social person who is interacting socially all the time, but also wanna keep to his or her own identity, or maybe adjusting. I hope it was useful in certain ways. Thank you very much.